budget is a very heavy document, but we'll try to bring out some of the key highlights, and then also conclude with some of the key highlights or key findings. So I want to project the key highlights as well. GDP growth projections and outcomes for the past 3 years are encouraging, especially the non-oil growth. The drive to ensure diversification of the economy should be sustained to avoid over-reliance on oil and gas. Ladies and gentlemen, wages and salaries and interest payments account for 27.12% and 25.9% in 2020, in the 2020 budget respectively, thereby limiting the fiscal space for capital spending. If you look at the amount allocated to capital spending, it's quite on the low side, as the expectation is that we'll go and borrow and finance what is, and again, we know the repercussions of that. There is no doubt that tax exemptions, high interest payments, and revenue shortfalls will continue to pose challenges in 2020, thereby affecting capital spending and stifling growth. Tax exemptions, we don't have the current figure. I only saw that of international trade tax exemptions. It's about a third of that component, international trade tax, goes into tax exemptions. Some are good. I mean, if there's a hospital that has to be hospital equipment or other things, they need to be exempted from some of this tax at the ports. So that for me is good. But I think we need to rationalize it. We need to go into that and see whether they are really, some of them are really necessary. I have seen some companies enjoy tax holidays, and I question whether it's value for money. Why should they enjoy these tax holidays? And I think there are quite a number of such companies around. Tax exemptions amounted to 2.4 billion in 2018. If you multiply by the exchange rate of 5.2 or 5.4, that is close to 13 to 14 billion Ghana cedis gone into tax exemptions. Ask yourself, how much did we raise from taxes to allow such a huge amount to go? If we are able to save 50% or even 40% of this amount, and we don't have to borrow, that will free us from interest payments and the like. And I think that is where the argument should go. You don't give out too much freebies and then you turn to the market and go and borrow. That doesn't make rational economic sense. The fiscal deficit target of 4.7% of GDP is unlikely to be achieved. However, because we have a law, I believe government will try to respect the law, so it will inch closely to the 5%. It is an economically prudent target. It makes economic sense. But sometimes when you bring in the political economy, the dynamics change. No road, no vote, no, then it changes. But politically, it is unappealing in an election year. In 2020, outlook risks of government crowding out the private sector and excessive pressure on interest rate has been noted. Also, increasing debt stock and debt sustainability remains of great concern. We also note that concerns about taxing mobile money remains and can affect financial deepening, especially the poor who have no access to formal banking services, and also with the collapse of microfinance and other non-bank financial institutions. The poor normally accesses financial services through microfinance and the like. A majority of them have been collapsed, and the one that they can cling onto, mobile money services, if we try taxing them, quite a number would pull out of that sector. So we ought to be very careful with that. Then we also note about debt. As of September, stood at 60.55% of GDP, but within the 65% DSA threshold. But interest payments remain very high. I think I've mentioned this. It has severe implications on the fiscal space and the exchange rate. It is not clear what the basis of projecting 6.9 growth rate in agriculture, especially if you look at our growth history in agriculture. And I think we ought to look at that in subsequent projections. Boosting productivity in African and Ghanaian agriculture is not new. It is important not to lose sight of its distortionary effects. Also, the subsidy strategy tends to be unsustainable if the fundamental issue of poor investment incentive is not addressed. I think I mentioned this earlier. Again, the 1D, 1F program, I think is laudable. If we have a decent factory in every district, it will minimize the rural-urban migration, it will create jobs, there will be forward and backward linkages between agriculture and industry. So that's a good idea. However, in the 2020 budget, we don't see any clear policy direction on how to address or cope with the dependence on the minerals and oil sector in the short to medium term. We're also not sure how much funding has been set aside to build the required infrastructure and employ the requisite number of lecturers in preparation for the huge number of SHS graduates who will be entering the universities in the next 2 to 3 years. What is the plan to employ those who drop out as well? I think that's something we need to be discussing. Lastly, job creation. There are a lot of, if you read the budget, a lot of job creation here and there, not very, coordinated. We see NAPCO over 90-something thousand jobs. It's 100,000, but close to 100,000 jobs. Then you find youth in afforestation, you find youth in employment, 91,420 jobs, and many, many, many others. But the question is, these are short-term jobs. People get into that for 2-3 years. What is the exit strategy? Yes, they acquire skills, but what is the exit strategy? I am a bit excited about some of these programs. For instance, NAPCO, for instance. Oftentimes when our graduates move out, employers require work experience. You cannot pay for work experience. You need to acquire that experience. Our students go out with letters trying to get job placement, and they don't easily get it. So if NAPCO is providing that platform, for me, it is good. However, my issue with NAPCO is whether we are getting value for money. 700 cedis per NAPCO trainee. If you multiply by 100,000 times 12, it's billions of cedis, over 8 billion cedis a year. In our economic balance, we say your wage rate should be equal to your marginal productivity. Are we deriving enough output from them? Are the benefits good enough to warrant how much we spend on NAPCO? That is one thing. Then, of course, with all of these jobs that are being created, is it enough? Is it going to, over the next 3 to 5 years or 10 years, ease the youth unemployment challenges that we face? I think that's, for me, very critical. Then, lastly, we were told that over 12.4 billion cedis have been put in the pockets of Ghanaians. I believe we all have had your share of the 12.4 billion cedis. But the trickle-down effect depends on where you find yourself. We are told free SHS. If you have a son or daughter or children in secondary school, part of this money would have trickled down to your pocket. But if you don't, then you won't benefit. If you are a nursing trainee, some of this money will go into your pocket. But if you are not, you won't find that, and so on and so forth. However, during the same period, we also saw utility price increases. We also saw communication service tax increased, and many others. And the net effect, as it eroded the gains, I think that's the kind of discussion we should be asking, whether with all these monies that have been put in our pockets, they haven't found another way to take it out of our pockets. I think that's the question we throw to ourselves. So on that note,